Today's matchup. Jin Air GreenWings. MVP. KT Rolster. SK Telecom T1. Beginning of the end. 2018 League of Legends Champions Korea Spring Split.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to OGN's LCK Spring 2018. I'm Atlas, back again. Finally, I feel like it's been forever. And this is, of course, Papa Smithy that you see every single night. And you're going to get him every night for the next few days as well. Papa, you got a big one.
PogChamp or dance game, depending on who you are out there. But very interesting match day here. Certainly the main course is something everyone loves to see. It's not necessarily been the dominant start for KT or SKT so far in the first week of action, but they will be facing the Telecom War. A lot of people are going to be tuning in for that. The first match here, you know, on first glance, it's kind of that entree where you're like, I don't know if I want this, but coming off that amazing victory over SKT-T1, I just want to see the Fountain Laser again. I want to see if 2 hours the dream comes true. It's a possibility. It's Jin Air GreenWings. Anything can happen.
Exactly. I want to see if Teddy spends more time in the game without boots than with boots.
Oh.
That's my favorite statistic. The guy is like bootsless the majority of the season thus far.
As I said on the cast, maybe we need to start that GoFundMe, get that man some boots. He should not be a shoeless warrior, but he makes it look good.
He certainly does. In fact, Jin Air actually coming into this series against MVP looking fantastic. MVP, on the other hand, really need to start going back to their MVP ways, Papa Smithy. I'm sick of Max playing weird stuff that's not fun. He needs to play weird stuff that's fun. I want the brand. I want the good things on the bottom side of the map.
I just want to see him play a melee champion. He's actually only played ranged champions in this tank support meta, and Shot Thresh is kind of on the edge, given that he gets Relic Shield and things like that, but I hear the music, and that means we got some info to show you. And the LCK data is that, last time you saw us here at OGN, Jin Air decided we were going to break some records. Look at that. On Saturday's match day, 4 hours, 50 minutes of League of Legends. People always say, I need more LCK. You got more LCK and then some. There's no movies that go 4 hours, 50. Even Lawrence of Arabia looks at that number and is like, that's pretty long.
And I mean, you're looking at like extended editions of Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. You're going to need to watch 2 movies to try and get through that number.
We saw a couple of movies that day, Seth and I. Kilios and I saw some interesting movies.
You saw some things.
Not sure if want to watch again.
Well, in fact, I was more than happy to watch it again, Papa Smithy. It was an enjoyable cast. But let's have a look at some CS records, because 4 in one game is pretty damn good. But that 1,456 versus Pilot's 741, with some quick maths, that's a 715 CS lead over the previous record in the LCK.
And my other favorite takeaway is, well, remember the number 1456. Let's also note that the top 4 CS numbers in a professional game in Korea were all in the same damn game. All 4 of them. Even Justice broke the CS record. Was insane stuff. Didn't quite get Tom Kench there. Maybe next time as we look at the individual gold record. And, you know, many games end with there not being 55,539 gold farmed. But, yep, Teddy did a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a certain correlation between killing creeps and getting gold. So that one does make a heck of a lot of sense. But let's have a look at the standings, because now that we're at least through the first week and a day, I guess, theoretically, of LCK, some interesting things have come out. Of course, Samsung, now KSV, sitting at that top spot makes some sense, but it's everything in the middle that's super interesting to me. Kongdu Monster sitting in 3rd place, Papa Smithy.
I think it's almost like we only have a middle. I feel like KSV are the best team and MVP the worst, but when there's almost nothing separating the table after 2 matches, having 8 teams equal when it comes to match score, not game score, so you notice that 2 zeros obviously buff up KT and Kongdu Monster, whereas the 2-1 losses do hurt Afrika. Let's get into the match at hand, because Jin Air GreenWings, that team that is synonymous with records, that team that is synonymous with forever games, they're back again.
They are back again, and I think as far as players to highlight, as we do have a look at the roster, I want to talk about Umti as well. I mean, he was the linchpin to why they were able to take down SKT at the end, managing to catch out Faker, which probably has tilted him off the planet. We'll see whether that is something to talk about in our next series, but he's been playing brilliantly, but not necessarily on the champions that have been getting the high priorities. Sejuani is where he's been falling down, but his other champions have certainly been looking good. His Kha'Zix at 1-0 now after that 94-minute slugfest, and then J4 sitting at 50%. So we'll see whether he is going to go with some meta picks or whether we're going to see some more bloodthirstiness out of the Umti.
I mean, the Korean fans very affectionately dubbed him King T on his good days, and it was one of his good days last time out. Very positive force on the team. Noted that a year ago, was new to the scene, still was frustrated after the losses, but he was cheering up his teammates, and Teddy, the Fountain Laser, will also be playing in this game. Jin Air will not be running Justice, who was involved in the 2 victories over SKT, former Longzhou Justice. Now, Jin Air Justice, Grace once again, Yaharong from the Kesper Cup will be starting in Game 1. And speaking of starters, MVP still messing with that formula that had been there for so long. No Maha in the starting lineup. It will be Pilot retaining his spot.
Yeah, and I think this is really exciting as well because Pilot, of course, formerly of Jin Air fame as well, now going up against his old organization. We'll see whether he's got some bones to pick with these guys down there with Max on the bottom side of the map. You can see a wry smile on his face as we check him out in the booth. So, some questions to be asked of Pilot.
And MVP as well, right?
Yeah, just in general. And should we talk about Ian? Should we talk about what's been going on there, Papa Smithy? Because I feel like, is it time to go back to the Syndra? Is it time to go back to some comfort for the man?
It feels like the Ultra Comfort was how MVP found their success in the past, Atlas.
Yeah.
That's the weird thing, is the Scions and the Syndras, the pick comps will work for them. But in those 4 games, we're seeing a lot of skirmish. We've seen 2 games of Nidalee. They're trying to reinvent the meta. I actually thought their second attempt at the Nidalee was very close to a victory over KT. Wasn't an impressive performance by KT in that series. When you look at the KDAs, though, understandably going to be tilted towards the side of Jin Air. And Teddy, he's already off the charts. Not as much as Huni that one time when he was at 32 KDA, but still a very nice KDA there for Teddy.
Yeah, Jin Air certainly have the handle on the squash racket. That is absolutely true when we have a look at those graphs over the top of one another. But
they have the handle on this matchup. Ever since they entered LCK in the summer of 2016, they have never lost a match to Jin Air GreenWings, so they'll definitely come in the underdog according to analysts because Jin Air have largely, they did pick up a win in their first series. Then, of course, with the matchup victory over the side of SKT, they have to come in favorites. But Jin Air, they're all about records. And
they're all about game time, Papa Smithy. There's a certain massive amount of time spent on Summoner's Rift for these guys.
This is the 7th ever split of the LCK. Jin Air hold the record for longest game in every split except 2016 Spring. All of them.
It's just stupid. But let's have a look at that Phantom Laser that you were talking about. The man that doesn't want to move very fast because boots just take up an item slot. And it's the Caitlyn and the Sivir that's certainly doing well. As far as his Caitlyn, I mean, that's a 10.5 KDA over both of his games as well. The man looked very, very good.
And let's look at the CS per minute in that Sivir game. 15.5 CS per minute. That's more CS than spawns in a lane per minute. That's because he was farming 3 lanes for what? The best part of 50 minutes against SKT. An insane stat. And speaking of insane stats, the fans agree that Jin Air GreenWings are the favorite here. 81% saying that Jin Air will be able to pick up their first ever match victory over MVP.
And looking at that stat and then having a look at this one, it's just so nuts because you're right, never been able to beat MVP in the past, but I just don't think that Jin Air have ever had a vote that skewed in the history of the LCK either, because finally we've got people getting behind these guys. The Glad plane seems to be rising high after that 94-minute game, the game that has made so many records and made history. We'll see whether we're going to be getting any more of those records here. I personally hope that it's the quickest game, Pop Smithy, because we need to be getting into that telecom war.
That's a fair point. We'll have a break between matches, even if this is a quick 2-0. So for the people hoping, still 8 p.m. looming, but could be later. It's a Jin Air GreenWings game. Anything can happen. We get to the draft here, and Varus first ban, so not wanting Pilot to be picking that on the red side.
Yeah, of course. Only playing a couple of champions so far. It was the Tristana that was the next one, so we'll see whether they target ban that one out. The luxury of the blue side is, of course, Jin Air will be over there to start this one off. MVP, what's it going to be? Okay, some standard bans, understandable on the red side with Kalista being taken off the board.
Pilots played a lot of solo queue, understandably. 21 games of Ezreal in the past 7 days, so Ezreal Vayne are his two big picks. Ezreal was always kind of his go-to champion. He's always been kind of a caster AD carry. So Corki was originally his meta pick back in the days of bot lane Corki. Ezreal as well. Even had a lot of Urgot games when we had a bit of an Urgot meta going there. So largely a caster AD carry rather than the, kind of the Caitlyn school of traditional AD carries. And also going to be a blue side Sejuani. So going with the fact that they haven't been picking up wins, even though the fleet footwork on the Sejuani has actually looked pretty good.
Yeah.
He's had some good games, but they haven't turned them into victories. Wonder if Jin Air will prize the Kha'Zix very highly. Definitely been a swingy champion so far in the LCK, but because different stuff is being banned, so far no Ezreal, so far no Kog'Maw. We see a Tahm Kench ban on red side. Sort of draft where things like Ryze and other high priority picks should be available in the draft.
And I think this is really interesting because you mentioned the Vayne and Ezreal priority that Pilot does have. He's probably happy to trade both of those champions. Vayne, of course, historically decent matchup into the Ezreal if Teddy's going to go there.
There's a lot of things happening here. So one thing you can say is that Jin Air will probably give Ezreal over and take Sivir against it just to try to abuse the wave clearing because Teddy's been playing it. Braum is going to be super high priority for MVP because they've banned Tahm Kench and they're basically saying, what about Braum? And in fact, they will ban the Braum. So they're basically saying, we respect this pick. We're not going to take it. We're not going to allow you to take it. So the first pick you would have assumed, given that Teddy isn't traditionally an Ezreal player, might allow it over, but they will lock it in. And okay, Teddy Ezreal, we're doing something different here.
Certainly are, and if you have a look, the mid lane completely open, so the Ryzes, the Azirs, both of them available to be taken here by Ian if he wants to go there, but I like the thinking from Jin Air. Don't worry about banning it out because Ian hasn't been having the best season so far with the meta picks. That's going to be Jarvan considered by Beyond, and going back to some comfort does make some sense, but the Ornn I feel is dangerous this early in the draft.
Could be a flex pick. We have seen support Ornn largely
That's
from...
true, this is Max.
And largely from Rock's Tigers. They've been the biggest favorite of it. Key has been enjoying it, but like you say, Max likes to reinvent himself from time to time. Every time you see two tanks locked in, you get a bit worried when Ezreal and Kha'Zix are the first selections. Gonna play with the hearts and minds. We still haven't seen Evelynn in Korea, but I know that Trick, for example, from BBQ likes it, so I think it will eventually be locked in. Not in this game, so for now, just gonna be shouting out the crowd a little bit there. Tease, Kha'Zix has been impressive.
Yeah, he got an hour and a half play on it. Competitive so far this season. Nice.
Won't miss his skill shots anymore. He can hit that W whether it's a line or an AoE.
Yeah, exactly. Although he did spend a lot of that game with it as an AoE, let's be real.
A lot of the historic win rates for people like obviously aren't going to be impressive given that Jin Air, outside of last season, have struggled pretty significantly. Looking at the draft though, happy to take Gnar as a blind pick and as the instant flash of the Yasuo. I love the mind games here in the draft already.
That's a cute one. I believe it was Sohan that was the first to try that last season as well, so cute that they are going to hover it. But the Azir does make some sense. A lot of mid lane picks that they do want to get rid of before the bans start coming in, and that is going to be the Emperor of Shurima, and I like the J4 Azir combo. MVP setting themselves up for some decent team fight. Something that they really have to get used to. You mentioned the MVP MO last season when they were picking up wins. It was pick compositions almost every single time, and it's a thing of the past nowadays.
Seems like 3 tanks and 2 hyper carries, given that Azir is a hyper carry from the mid lane, is going to be the flavor of the draft from MVP. Probably just going to be Malzahar and Ryze bans, being like, well, this is what's good. Both of them can lane against the Azir. Let's just ban them away, and kind of a smart ban there on the Sivir coming through against Pilot, another champion he was very well known for. So we'll see if we do see a Ryze ban here. Grace hasn't played it in competitive play yet. Was playing it back at the Kesper Cup, though, so we should include those games. Yaharong, his previous name, and
That makes some sense.
So they're kind of happy with the Ryze. Even though Ryze is seen as a winning matchup against Azir, it's not a severe one by any means. That's a bit on the nose.
Ryze just doesn't lose a lot of matchups these days.
Here's the safest blind pick. Orianna, stand back.
Yeah.
Hold Ryze's beer, because Ryze is in there.
Well, Pilot needs to make his decision after we do have this final ban. 3 seconds to go.
80 carry.
Yeah, Vayne ban does make sense. Okay, I like it. I feel like Jin Air have read this.
Again, one of those easy scopes and easy scouting missions, seeing that he's been playing a lot of it recently. A second hyper carry with 3 tanks was already what my mind went to, so 2 of the kind of more premier choices are taken away, and it might cause MVP to pivot pretty heavily. This would be much more towards the pick-com side. It would also be a Pilot and even a Maha special. They are known for the Jin. But last second, they go back to what they were originally intending. They're going to go for 2 consistent damage threats and expect there to be a tank jungler. Sorry, tank jungler's already selected, but a tank support or a tank top laner selected is going to have Jin Air close out the draft first.
I do like the Alistair being considered. Certainly, Gorilla yesterday had some incredible moments on that pick, and we'll see whether the spellbook is going to be unsealed.
It's Wraith. He's known for out-of-the-box thinking, so I would expect it to be so.
Out-of-the-book thinking, potentially. We're going with on the nose in this
we certainly are so far.
You're winning. You got more points on the board than me. I really needed to catch back up. Wraith now, what does he grab? So we've got a jungler, we've got a top laner. We need that Rise to be locked in, theoretically. And they would have that Rise Gnar combo that has been so coveted, but LeBlanc is an option.
This would be different here. Is a good matchup into the Azir. And okay, LeBlanc is actually selected, so maybe this is showing that Grace is going to be there as we wondered about the super tanks. We got the premier super tank. One of the reasons they were happy to leave open Gnar is of the true tank matchups, Sion does the best with all his shields and his bonus health. What did we say last week? Okay, you're not winning. When do you default to comfort? We do see Ian moving to the Syndra, but Insta-lock Sion is the ultra comfort for ADD.
Yeah, and you were actually having this conversation with Achilleos during that MVP versus KT game. You were talking about the fact that ADD does need to move back to more of these comfort picks because he's always been so damn good at Sion. Even Max, of course. You guys remember the famous quadra kill on support Sion. Like, this team knows how to play around the train on the top side. We'll see whether this is going to spell MVP's return. They're against a team they're good at winning against.
And we kind of have a extra irony here, Atlas, because you look at this draft as an analyst and you say, Jin Air kind of wins to a point. It feels like their damage drops off against super tanks. LeBlanc, Ezreal, and Gnar will all eventually kind of be no damage threats as the game goes on. So ironically, the 90-minute dream is not there for Jin Air. They need to do a lot of work pre-40 minutes to actually get a big enough lead. Because I think eventually, LeBlanc especially falls off heavily against super tank frontliners. They're going to find it very difficult to push damage in the backline. Ezreal, for example, is no Sivir. The Mystic shots will be absorbed. Kha'Zix, again, in the ultra late game, maybe at 90 minutes, but in traditional fights around 40, not strong. This is the draft where MVP is saying, we're going to take it late against the people who love to take it late, and they've actually got the tech to one-up.
Yeah, they do. And in the super late game, I absolutely give it to MVP. But if you're talking about mid-game compositions, holy crap. Jin Air have certainly got everything going for them, and it's going to be about MVP trying to weather the storm and get themselves to that late game. We'll see whether they can do it. It's exciting stuff. Jin Air versus MVP. MVP always have fans, Papa Smithy, all the time. Doesn't matter how badly they're doing. We've always got them. And, of course, now with ADD back on the Sion. Ian trying his hand once again on the Azir, but Pilot with that Caitlyn, waiting to get to that late game. It's going to be tough, but we'll see whether they can do it.
The sort of thing that might be lost on a lot of more casual fans or maybe just League of Legends only fans is that actually today we have 2 matches where all the organizations are very storied. MVP and Jin Air have been around a long time. Yeah. MVP especially, one of the most prominent multi-game esports orgs. It feels like every esport that comes around, MVP has a team in. Jin Air also a standby. And then, of course, KT and SKT, the telecom teams in our second match. So it's definitely not the new orgs today. It's all about the old. And for Jin Air, see some new chromas, see some new ideas. The draft is different from some of the ones we've seen from them recently, and Grace trying to make the LeBlanc work that I think a lot of people are skeptics of in this matter.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, Edge is watching on right now. Of course, a famous LeBlanc player just jealous of the fact that Grace has been the one to pick it up first. Certainly with a lot of LeBlanc players in this particular tournament. You mentioned the Telecom War. Faker's name always has to come up when you mention LeBlanc.
Although not recently, right? It hasn't been a prominent pick for him in a very long time now. Kind of gave it up after that loss of the streak against EDG back at MSI 2015. Looking at Teddy, who certainly has been the key player for Jin Air, you'll notice very high DPM, 834. An average CS of 13.3, average, across all his games. Because the funny thing is, you know, we talk about the no boots situation. That's happened for him, I believe, 5 times already this season. It might be 4.
I think it's 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5, something like that.
He's been reaching ultra late game. You think of the Vayne game, which he couldn't carry. He was also no boots there. So.
And then the double Caitlyn games as well, exactly the same circumstance.
He certainly has been able to farm up a Storm in the, 54-minute, I think, average game time for Jin Air. Obviously incredibly skewed by the 94-minute game, but
yeah.
Teddy certainly has been getting to the ultra late game a lot as Grace misses the chains. It's not a great look.
Yeah, but still able to shatter some orbs, so we're doing okay. The trades with LeBlanc, at least this level 3 mark, feeling quite good with the Corrupting Potion.
Umti understands they need to be proactive with this draft. They have to get it started now. If the chain hits here...
Oh, it doesn't though. Ian gets himself off to the side, and Umti says, well, it would have been great if you landed the CC.
Yeah, Ian was slow as well. That would have definitely have registered if he was able to hit the chains. So needs to get the skill shot accuracy better. Otherwise, you say, you know, why LeBlanc could have gone somewhere more conventional. Riseroot would have hit that Atlas.
Exactly. Well, I mean, didn't have much of a choice for Riseroot, so...
Hey, you could root a minion.
Hey, that's true. I mean, I've done that one before. People say that Ryze is a difficult champion, is an easy champion. I find ways to make him difficult.
You constantly impress me, Atlas.
Thanks, man. This is the day of compliments from you, isn't it?
That's what I'm going to go for.
One of those games.
Backhanded, front-handed, all types of handed compliments. Should see Beyond here basically kind of go against type with Jarvan and spend the whole time shadowing, the whole time battle warding, the whole time just in general providing vision, because MVP are so confident in taking this to late. They are so happy with their team comp in the late game. They don't necessarily have to over-pursue in the early game. I think you outlined it very well at the end of the champ select. The only way Jin Air wins is snowballing. They kind of have the win lane, win game thing going. They have a very strong mid game. 1-2 items, they are very powerful. But once you get to 4 or 5, it's only MVP.
Well, we'll see whether they can actually start it off well, because Pilot, he's ignited, taking so much damage. That Q's going to land, and Teddy continues his reign of terror. First blood on the bottom side. This is perfect for Jin Air.
And Teddy showing that he can take the proactive side. He doesn't need to be farming. He's no Celestial Body Sivir just farming up. He's going to go Ezreal and be aggressive. This is why Teddy has always been super hyped, amazing in spring of last year. Decent in summer, not his best season. A great start already. We said Teddy and Wraith could be the breakout bot lane given Wraith's history as a strong laner. So far, so good.
Yeah, and Grace is just straight up off the chain in the mid lane because he is missing every single one of them. That is 0 for 3 right now, but thankfully Teddy starting this one off strong.
That's the first time I've ever heard off the chain be an insult.
I know. I thought it was a good experiment. I had fun. I don't think it's actually a good idea, so I won't continue that one, but...
I mean, it's a Jin Air game. We have a lot of time to try things and then learn what works and apply them to other games.
So how many Gathering Storms do you think MVP have taken?
Well, we can now have a look at the Keystones. I know you guys are always impatient for them. It takes a couple of minutes for them to load up. When it comes to sorcery, we don't have that much. Well, we actually do have 4 sorcery trees.
Yeah,
so
see?
I'm going to guess at least 2.
Is Pilot's somehow gone for sorcery, and I feel like the only reason you do that is if you want to grab yourself some Gathering Storm. So I like it. Learning from the fact that Jin Air do like to
the outscale with Gathering Storm. The ultra I'm facing Jin Air.
Yeah, exactly.
Approach here, potentially from MVP.
It's their Achilles heel. They're probably going to be approaching Riot and saying, guys, you put a rune in the game that directly counters us.
That is definitely...
take it out?
The moment I saw that, I thought of that joke. What I've already said a couple of times. I'm glad you picked it up as well.
Landed the chain.
Took a lot of damage that time.
Yeah, see the chains land, and you're actually going to be able to get some work done there, Grace. Possibly could have sent Ian back a little bit earlier, but that's okay. 6 minutes in, gets him out of the lane. Should be able to catch himself back up as this next minion wave crashes down.
You can say about the sorcery on Caitlyn doesn't really provide him much in the 1v1 early, and then found himself assassinated by Ezreal of all people. You don't often see 2v2 kills in the LCK, so that was actually a really big mistake by this new bot lane of Pilot and Max, and like you say, by the former Jin Air star in Pilot.
And look at Teddy as well. I mean, he's got a couple of bags of gold, 100 just chilling there in his back pocket. His wallet's overflowing. He's got a pickaxe on his first back. Not wanting to wait around for a Sheen or anything like that. And of course he doesn't have any boots.
I mean, getting the Muramana earlier is great story for the side of Jin Air. We gonna keep saying it this game. It needs to keep coming. This needs to be an extended snowball. We need to see pathing around the power of his bot lane and also trying to make things happen in top side, because we are very worried about Jin Air if the game goes longer.
So on, continuing to play aggressively and moving up here in this lane. As we check in, it's completely even though, with ADD having an entire minion wave. This guy is always able to get farm when he's on side. You think theoretically he is a melee champion, but damn, just seems to be able to get around a minion wave and pick up whatever he likes, even against the likes of Nas.
He has 4 AoE abilities, if you think about it.
Well,
his
yeah,
ult is
true.
AoE even as well, but his AoE farming is the reason why he's the strongest of the tanks. His Q, his E, both kind of non-committal, allow for strong wave clear. So even in difficult matchups, if anyone's going to weather the storm, it's definitely the Sion.
Well, he's going to have to weather a bit of an ultimate here from So-On as they're trading blows. Everyone just not really taking damage there at all. CS continues to be entirely even. Obviously thinking about a steal, but Beyond's going to be able to get that smite. All too easy.
Good to see the control wards around Mountain Drake. I'd like that see that started soon as a bit of a backup win condition. They have complete lane control. In bot side, LeBlanc will always have lane control in at least the early game against Azir.
A lot of vision control as well for Jin Air on the bottom side, so you could imagine that that is partially their plan. So on, picking up this minion wave as they're going for the dive. The choo-choo train comes out, and he's going to be able to easily get home. God, the Mecha Scion choo-choo train is my favorite.
I don't know if he shouts cowards in that skin, so I'm not partial to it. He continues to push up. Jin Air playing around pressure very well so far. Harassing under turret.
Well, there's the double pulverize. Ignite goes down again as Pilot is just getting piled on. Max is going to go down as well this time. And Teddy grabs his second kill. 2-0-1 to start this one off as also starting off great with that double.
Jin Air have smashed, dumpstered the bot lane of MVP. They're going to take the turret at 9 minutes. Heads up, and now also with joining the story. Didn't matter if there was a control ward. Super well executed. No hesitation from Wraith. Instant flash, headbutt pulverize, ignite on the AD carry. Still no flash up for the Caitlyn. Sorry about that. About 10 seconds away. They turn it into a Mountain Drake, and Jin Air wants to go home early.
Yeah, and Jin Air has the dream on the bottom side. Look at Teddy, picks up Boots of Lucidity as well as the Sheen. You do not feel much better than that, and completes the Manamune, of course. So, my God, just don't go back to the lane. MVP, I just would not do it. If Teddy's there, leave the lane, go somewhere else.
Let's see what Teddy wants to do, because there's always 2 schools of thought when you break the turret so early. We don't see pre-10-minute turret breaks very often in the LCK, or really in competitive play at all. The old strategy would be to just mindlessly rush mid lane and try to take a turret, but it's against Azir with both summoners up, and he's got non-committal wave clear and also escapes, so realistically, Ezreal's just going to be shoved in even with LeBlanc's help. Feels like 2v1, they can't really push the minions against an Azir, so for now at least, going to return bot lane. What this does allow is Wraith can roam very freely, and it's just Ezreal versus Caitlyn bot side, and what you'll notice, you can see it on the minimap, Caitlyn's like, I would really like you to push the minion wave into my inner turret. We have no control bot side, so Ezreal can actually just control the minion wave a lot, and just look for further pain onto whether it's just Caitlyn or the Caitlyn Ornn. He's so safe and so strong with 2 summoners up still on the Ezreal that Teddy has nothing to worry about.
And they've got a lot of options as well. I mean, they could even just continue 2v2ing on the bottom side and move up really, really far and have gather people as they're trying to rotate to assist, because they're going to have to. There's no way that MVP's bottom lane is going to be able to stand up against
So what you need to do there is you need to have a control ward to the right of the mid laner. So in the entrance towards the Mountain Drake, if you're walking down from MVP, and a control ward on the blue buff. And then basically it's like LeBlanc pushes in and either he's going to go for a pick. And speaking of picks.
Yep, Teddy, so much damage. Almost takes him out through the heal and the flash and lands every ability. See you later, Ian. You're going to go back home. And that could just be that mid lane outer turret, which only helps exactly what you were just talking about, because that's even more map control and vision control that Jin Air will be able to command.
And we saw the confidence, how elated the players were after winning against SKT. That was a lot about exhaustion and just winning a game over SK Telecom. What we're seeing today is the players just playing with their tails up. They're actually turning it into a positive performance in their next game. And that's why it would be easy to write off and be like, well, they won a best of 3 in the first week of the season. The cascade of how they're playing here is what Jin Air fans should be really excited about.
And at this time of the tournament as well, with the fact that Jin Air could be off to such a great start, if Summer's anything to go on, it's also, an example, but, So-On's in trouble. He's going to get cataclysmed, and And that is just too much for the man to work with. Max comes up as well. He's going to help out, and ADD tanks the turret forever.
Spent a lot of time to get the kill. Going to stay top lane. Kha'Zix, Alistar, and Ezreal all roaming. They do not want to give any extra gold to the side of MVP. I assume they're going to not attempt for kills, but you never know.
Well, Wraith does certainly have an itchy trigger finger. Sort of his MO as Teddy looks for another Q.
I mean, 10 minutes into this game, he was already, for 10-minute standards, a fountain laser as he stops 2 backs.
Yep. Very coordinated as they restart them, though. But that's going to give a lot of time to Jin Air to try and take down this outer turret topside.
You definitely have to stack as much armor as possible to even have a hope to deal with this Ezreal in mid-game fights, and that should mean if LeBlanc's chains are hitting, then it should be LeBlanc being able to run away with a team fight.
Yep, it's going to get easier as well when that Gunblade is completed. Having an extra slow certainly helps out after the distortion, as Pilot could be in trouble. He reappears, and Pilot probably has a mini heart attack. It's at that point, you know, this is the mid-game Caitlyn that you never, ever, ever, ever want to be. Because she's bad enough as it is, and you can see now Pilot regrets ever coming to this lane.
It's the safest place to farm, but LeBlanc is one of the few that get over wards and get picks anyway. It's going to be pretty immovable here if you have 2 tanks on the top side, so it's going to take time for Ezreal to push through, as Umti's creative pathing has been a delight on this Kha'Zix. With boots and mobility, the amount of time he spends stealth, given that MVP is scared to put wards down, given they could just die to Ezreal or any combination of LeBlanc, is basically going across the map with the warriors early, an accelerated build, and he's largely invisible the entire time. So many headaches for MVP.
Yeah, and while he was walking through the jungle just there, that basically equated to half of the health on the mid lane outer turret, because Ian just couldn't get over there. You may not necessarily be able to see very clearly exactly what he's doing, but it's certainly creating dividends here for Jin Air. It's another one of those Kha'Zix games that feels really, really good. They're 3-1, and with all of this control, he's almost the perfect champion, because you find anyone and they're isolated, you're able to take them down. Wraith turning up at exactly the right time to guarantee this Rift Herald, but a teleport's coming in. MVP really want to try for this one. Oh, that was close, as Beyond doesn't get the knockups. Max comes in, though, bonks over the Ram, but it's not quite enough. Umti is just going to explode. Emperor's Divide certainly working out, but we've only got boomerangs. Teddy trying his best to lock down Beyond, but it's not enough. That's a nice little pick. MVP claiming something back.
Yeah, big investment for them to show up for that fight. They don't get the Rift Herald. Jin Air actually have position on the mid lane. Azir might be able to stop them taking the turret, but it's going to be very, very low. Yeah, about 6-7 auto attacks away, so still going to be advantage Jin Air. Will be happy they picked up a kill. They want to inflict as much pain now as possible, but nice buy timing for Umti. Gets a serrated Dirk. It doesn't really change the situation in the game, because just before the Rift Herald, they were able to take the top lane outer turret as well. They extend the lanes. There's more space for Umti, Grace, and Wraith to have those guest appearances and allow for more picks.
What?
Yeah, he's ultra fed.
Goes back, and I was like, oh, that's probably an Iceborne Gauntlet full completion. No. Trinity Force completely done for Teddy.
I mean, your item analysis needs to be different for this game. We have to always go back to our expectations in Champ Select. Iceborne Gauntlet gives you control, but they don't need control. They need damage early while it's still registering. While the armor items are not there, they go for the Trinity Force. Insane mid-game spike. He's what, 2-3 minutes away from a Muramana as well? This Ezreal is going to be a hot knife through butter for basically the entire mid-game.
Well, Ian, he needs to watch out. The chains are going to land that time, but doesn't wait for the second shatter. This tower, like you mentioned, couple of auto attacks done, and you said 7, but when there's a Trinity Force on Teddy, that was 2. Still able to take that one down. Nash's Tooth is there for Ian, so he's starting to scale up, trying to get what he can to make things work, but ADD's sitting on components right now, and he does have a little bug on this bottom side. Wraith turns up and says, ADD, I'm sorry, you're not going to turn into a train today. True Shot Barrage comes in. He's just continuing to destroy everyone. Wraith just not even worried. Going to headbutt back the decaying zombie.
And you take the early turrets, guess what? Long lanes for picks like what you saw. Grace also able to enter.
Grace turning up on the top side at the same time. You have to mention LeBlanc being able to have so much more of that map to roam around. Bottom side is where MVP thinks they're going to get caught. That top side of the map is very, very dark, and everything else is just going to continue to get darker and darker, because even if Wraith finds someone, that's still going to be terrifying times for MVP because he can just set up kills for the rest of his team.
2,700 gold lead at 17 minutes. For Teddy, who's just an absolute monster. You'll notice not a big gold lead in the mid lane, certainly. And top lane is the predictable 500 gold for the ranged Gnar against the Scion.
Yeah, and it feels like sort of as the game extended with the victory in the bottom side of the map overflowing towards top side is the only reason why ADD is behind that amount
17-minute Trinity Force Miramana CDR boots for Teddy.
Oh, God. Pilot, that True Shot Barrage hit him. He was dead, thankfully. Sidesteps, has his dancing shoes on. By that I mean walked casually to the right.
So MVP, all they want to do here is put down wards, and if they can delay objectives going down, they're happy. You cannot fight against this Ezreal. He will solo win, because there's no ability to close down. He still has both summoners up, because he felt no threat the entire game. I don't think he's used summoners yet, actually. Hasn't needed to. So anywhere Teddy is, MVP wants to have some wards and just back away and try to find farm anywhere that Teddy's not.
Teddy just wants to get his Blade of the Ruined King and kill everyone, even if they're underneath the turret, because he'll have the Helper Wraith to tank that one up. Omdi going to hand over Harold to this bottom side. Remember, was actually able to pick that one up before he died around the Herald earlier on.
Jin Air might have the best early game we've seen so far in the LCK this year. First 20 minutes so far has been almost flawless.
I feel like I accidentally predicted it earlier on. I need to try and make predictions more often, Pub Smithy. Pilot with big overshield, but I think it's quite enough when you just don't have much of a number in that health bar. ADD going to take a fair bit of damage here, but not too worried. Has a Negatron cloak now finally, but it's not going to help him here against Teddy. Still takes a lot of abuse. Wraith discovering beyond. Omti's going to find him. He's isolated and destroyed. Teddy picks up yet another kill. Pilot, are you even safe underneath this turret? It is still relatively healthy.
Double buff Ezreal.
Oh, God. I've had these games before, Papa Smithy, and they do not feel good. You're an MVP fan.
Maybe this is solo queue. There's definitely 4 votes on the early surrender so far, and someone's considering their options for the 5th surrender vote.
And if they have any idea who it is that is question mark pinging them, like, what are you doing? Why haven't you voted? Okay. Jin Air will be able to grab that turret very, very easily, though. Continuing to put on the pressure is So1 on the bottom side. Try and spell to augment his Black Cleaver. Should be pretty close to Frozen Mallet and the like.
Back's back. 2,200 gold. Is that an entire...
Yeah,
yep, it is definitely a Blade of the Ruined King. This is what we call the Terra 20-minute Ezreal, who has literally everything.
3 full items, one of them being the most expensive item in the game
double buff.
At 20 minutes, and double buff. Oh, the filthiest.
We may never have had a stronger Ezreal in LCK history. There's been a lot of games we've had fed Ezreal. Not that often in the first 20, but short of a mid lane Ezreal who has more levels, this Ezreal is just utterly dominant.
This is just filthy. Because he's very good at farming, Pub Smithy. If there's anything that we've learnt about Teddy, he is very good at farming. I'm glad that he was in the 94-minute game and has by far the most disgusting CS number, because it does tell you about his play just in general. He's good at taking down their minions.
13.3 CS average, and people will be like, well, it was largely conflated by farming 3 lanes for 50 minutes. Games like this are going to not necessarily take away from that number, Atlas. So that's the part where you're like, oh, wait, he's just really good. Yeah.
And we've been saying it for a long time, but he hasn't had very many opportunities to really demonstrate it. It feels like this season, feeling like the Teddy season we've been looking for. Max. Oh, God. Have you noticed Teddy's also been using Arcane Shift to farm? This guy's just having the best time ever.
There's literally no threat on it. It's 3 tanks and 2 emaciated carries. I mean, Azir's doing all right. Caitlyn is basically a caster minion at this point, so he has no threat on him, so why wouldn't he?
No, absolutely. Meandra's Torment is attempted to be going for here by Ian, wants some sort of magic penetration. Oh, Teddy even gets the Dream Red pot as well.
I don't think we should celebrate him anymore. It might go to his head.
Yeah, well, I mean, if he was listening, oh God. Sorry, MVP. It's Grace pops back. He's going to be able to mimic that distortion, though, and oh, that feels bad, doesn't it, Pilot?
Just interrupting the ult there. He's going to keep returning to this turret. When they start turret diving the full damage Scion, so the full tank Scion, that's probably a bad sign.
Yeah, it's a bit of a rodeo down here as Wraith turns up behind ADD. He's able to get out, but he's not going to be able to tank up anything more. As in comes Teddy. True Shot Barrage was looking for ADD and actually does stop the back, which is very important, to be honest. Where are you going, Ian?
Grace is waiting out his spells. He should be able to pick up the kill. I think he's just surprised by what he's seeing.
Yeah, gets distorted on there as the heal comes out. Stopwatch is used, but Ian honestly just trying to clear out these minions, and Grace is buying time. It's pretty much all he needs to do. This LeBlanc, almost irrelevant with how huge Teddy is at this point in time.
Ian was taking a couple too many tricks from Kuro with his QEs there. It wasn't great, but I didn't die, so that's good.
Hey, Kuro's first Azir game this season was good.
What have you done for me lately, Atlas?
Oh, dear. I don't think we need to talk about Kuro being better. Can he escape? He can't escape it even when he's not here. so sad.
Just a bit of cheeky bans, come on.
And yesterday was not a good day for the Afrika Freaks either. Khan coming back and saying, guys, I need to let everyone know that I'm the best carry on the top side of the map, and Afrika didn't want to be the punching bag for that, but they were.
Beyond has actually gone for the, I guess I needed armor and magic resist early build here. Had the stopwatch and just turned it into the Gargo's stone plate. So budget tankiness because he needs to be tanky. What did we say? 3 super tanks and 2 hyper carries, and while it's certainly nothing compared to his opponent, Pilot has hit 2 items. Ian has hit 2 items.
Oh, they caught him!
Yep.
And Ian, that Shurima shuffle was smooth, catching the leap of Umpty there as well, and they need to find this. Any way to slow down the Jin Air aeroplane is a real good idea.
Yeah, picks into buying time isn't a win condition for every team. For now it is for MVP. They need to do that more and more. Killing Grace would be lovely, but good luck catching a LeBlanc.
Yeah, everyone's unchained this game. Grace not quite finding them. That's okay. You mentioned super tanks. I think that this game, maybe they're model tanks. It's hasn't really got to that super tank stage, but the game isn't over yet. The base isn't broken yet. So Jin Air do need to close this one out. They need to put Teddy somewhere where he can kill everyone. Has a Last Whisper now for himself as well. But I mean, MVP are probably looking at this going, there'll be a time where Ezreal can't buy any more items. You best believe he's going to be selling his boots.
That's true.
But I mean, there's still only 6 item slots. So Jin Air do need to try and get as much work done as possible.
The full court press can't really lead to too much more without Baron buff. They have every turret down except for inner mid lane. Getting that Baron would be lovely. They do have 2 control wards. Setup so far for Baron is good, but the moment Ezreal isn't in the lane, they're going to put 2 and 2 together and be there to contest. And
MVP clearing all of this vision out and actually doing a decent job keeping themselves able to move up
oh,
relatively safely. As this isn't safe. There's the headbutt back as Beyond's in trouble. That last auto take, True Shot Barrage finishes it off as Ian, the next target under fire. In goes Umpty though, they're looking for Pilot. He's not able to do anything, but Umpty does once again fall down. Another headbutt pole though, and Max, he's trying to get out of there. The charge, not enough, is over the wall. Grace lands the chain. When it all comes down to it, able to get the work done, and with a lot of dead members of MVP, Jin Air should be able to get the Baron.
Yeah, Jin Air going to turn onto it. No junglers at all, so they don't have a smite secure, but they're also not too worried about Ian coming over. He should start walking, though. There is always that chance, Atlas. Crazy things can happen when there's no smite to secure.
Yeah, especially with having a fair bit of CC and ADD moving on over, as he should be able to get a flash in there as Grace gets himself over to the side. They do try and nail them into the wall, but the Baron, it's already dead because Teddy has so much damage, and I almost would have waited for that chain as ADD got very close to being dead as well. MVP, dire straits at this state of the game, and a Baron buff now on Jin Air. Let's check it out again.
I mean, all you have to do is actually get MVP to fight, and it's happy days for Jin Air. It doesn't matter if Umpty is giving up his life. So a tasty cupcake, shouldn't have stowed on it, did anyway.
Yeah.
But if Ezreal is free autoing, every team fight will go the way of Jin Air GreenWings, even kill Max over the wall. Don't break the base from this, but they do take the Baron. We said they've done the most without a Baron. Now they have the Baron, so it's game-ending time for Jin Air GreenWings.
Teddy, 3 control wards and 5 items. As many buffs as he can possibly get. Probably wants to try and grab a blue at some point, but it looks like Grace still has dibs on that.
He's future-proofing himself a little bit. He actually went for the Lord Dominic's Regard. We won't see too much of this item this season. They increased the threshold to 2,000 for you to do maximum damage to tanks from the 1,000 it was before. kind of help out fighters with that particular change. One thing you can say is good against Stone Plate, because that's a lot of extra health. And also, Sion does have unlimited health scaling, so it's a bit of future-proofing. I think at this point, the most immediate power would have been the Executioner's Calling upgrade, the Mortal Reminder, but you don't necessarily feel bad when it is going to be eventually 3 super tanks that Ezreal's face.
Yeah, and I think that it also makes sense because he's going to be going through ADD first off anyway, almost every single fight. Jin Air being able to utilize Umpty and Grace to get Pilot out of there, so it does make a lot of sense.
He's Flame Horizoning right now, by the way, is Teddy.
Ah, Teddy picking up a lot of fun. This makes some sense.
100 CS up over
Exactly.
Pilot. It'll probably grow if the game goes longer.
It's pretty pathetic, though. He's still under 1,000, under what he got in the last game.
So one doesn't die. Mid lane, free time for Teddy. They don't quite take the turret, but they're not far away from it either. So one just had to buy time with multiple members on him. Waiting for the next minion wave here is Jin Air.
Oh, God, okay. Teddy in a little bit of trouble potentially, but Blade of the Ruined King's going to keep him healthy beyond. Goes in with the Cataclysm, but he's just too far ahead. The Qs keep landing. He's looking for Beyond. Doesn't get it, but they get the turret. They should be able to get top lane as well as Grace. He's pushing it on ADD. Nothing the Sion can do. Nothing the Azir can do. And Beyond relegated to the Fountain. MVP. They're just on scraps. The rest of their base is going to fall over. 30 minutes into the game is looking like when Jin Air are able to put in the final nails. With 3 inhibitors down, MVP is going to have one hell of a comeback to stay in this. And I just don't think it's going to happen. Grace looking for Pilot. He just pops.
Okay.
See you later, buddy. That's going to be the Shadow. Good flash gets him over the train.
When you're all chasing the LeBlanc, it's a bad sign. When blowing the heel of the Ezreal is the best news story about how MVP have interacted with Teddy, that's also a bad sign. His flash will never be used this game unless it's securing a kill. And they're just trying to take some Nexus turrets. They're overstaying, but when you have Teddy, it's fine.
Teddy's KDA this season so far is something absurd. Now continuing to do so. 5-0-2 this game. 9-4 in kills. MVP not going to get perfect game this time, but Jin Air just looking better and better. After what was relatively unfortunate first showing, come back to look pretty brilliant, to be honest.
And doing it in a different way is so impressive by Jin Air. We know that they can hold their medal in a late game. That's always been the story with Jin Air, but to draft this comp where it feels like they're going against everything they stand for, drafting for the early game. They did this in summer a little bit, but there still were those long games. This season has been only long games for Jin Air. To show this, suddenly, it feels like Jin Air becomes appointment viewing, not ironically, but actually because you want to see what Jin Air will show us next in good ways. Jin Air has been very impressive, all things considered. SKT victory, no fluke with a performance like this, even against MVP.
Papa Smithy is a 28-minute full build. Like, is that the fastest?
He's 8,000 gold ahead of Pilot. 8,000.
I don't think I've ever seen a completed build, like outside of a completely troll community game or something. It's just ludicrous. Pilot now having to get underneath that fountain and maybe stay there. Seems to be the only safe place. There's now Jin Air with super creeps everywhere are looking to finish this one off. The fight starts and Grace takes a lot of damage. Empress Divide just gets whipped. No one gonna get hit by that one as Teddy on the outside trying to get all the kills. Massive focus onto Pilot there from Teddy. 2 abilities and he's dead.
Triple kill.
Make that a triple kill. Could we get the penta now for Teddy? No, we're not, because Sowan's a scumbag. He's gonna steal it away. Still, it's going to be a quadra. The Nexus is going to fall. 31 minutes, and Jin Air, extraordinary performance from the AD carry. Teddy continues to turn it on.
Best performance by any team in 2018 goes to the Jin Air GreenWings, drafting an early game comp and then winning everywhere. They looked hyped. Here comes Coach Han, basically to say, hey, whatever you guys did there, can you do that again one more time?
And then just walks out again, because he doesn't need to say more.
We might actually have an hour and a half's wait for the telecom war with how fast this series is going. Everyone on Jin Air hyped and everyone on MVP for the 5th game in a row. Shell shot. They looked a bit better against KT Rolster, but Jin Air are on a different level than MVP right now. Maybe we'll see Maha come in for their next game because they were outclassed in the bottom lane and they got snowboard on, styled on, dumpstered in every way.
Yeah, there almost aren't enough adjectives to really talk about how outplayed they just got. But it was a relatively disrespectful draft coming out of MVP. MVP, I understand the thought process. Jin Air always take their games long. They left themselves open to this massive mid-game snowball. Jin Air were able to capitalize. Let's hope that in game number 2, it's not the exact same story by MVP. And Teddy, massive grins ear to ear. Humpty as well, having another decent performance. He was the only one that was really dying. Kha'Zix, it's a little bit difficult against characters.
He knew his job. His
kill.
pathing on Kha'Zix was really good. Everyone from Jin Air should hold their heads up high. Dispatched MVP in just an amazing fashion, and it's going to take one hell of a draft in game 2. They cannot go disrespectful. They cannot go scaling against Jin Air, because apparently Jin Air can beat you at that game too. That means that things here are going to be very difficult for the coaching staff to really diagnose and fix in just a short break.
Yeah, you can see MVP sort of sitting there, not really understanding what they can do to fix this one. Oh, we mentioned dire straits earlier on. MVP once again having trouble. We are going to go to a short break. When we get back, game number 2, we'll see if MVP can turn it all around.